I've told you that the Big Ten embarrassed itself last week. Now I've got some of the biggest names in college football agreeing with me. Okay. You'll be shocked that I'm going to give this man any credibility, but I will do it. And it's all in the name of taking down the Big Ten. Okay. So the Big Ten had this coordinated message discussed ad nauseum at Big Ten Media Days about why the 4-4-2-2 model is the way to go. Our resident professional sports enthusiast, Tony Petitti, certainly made that case why this like professional sportsy sort of model really works. And, did so by making stellar points such as, well, a 6-3 Big Ten team should definitely get in. That's a great team if you go 6-3 in the Big Ten. That's one where like your PR person has to step in and be like, hey, homie, like we can't do press release at the podium. Like that's the type of thing you might throw into a press release that people would just kind of roll their eyes and be like, okay, whatever. It's a press release from the conference. They got to say something like that. You can't be making that point up there. You got James Franklin, Kurt Cignetti taking shots at the SEC. Cignetti, we're adopting an SEC scheduling philosophy, blah, 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 blah. I mean, it was nauseating, man. Every coach stepped in line. It was really, it was directly by Pat Forty called cultish. What was it that Stuart Mandel was saying that they were gaslighting everybody about what was going on with the playoff. A lot of people jumped in on this. But now we've got one more, and it's the second time I'm bringing him up here on the show. Neither time really bashing him. So this is a world record, but this is a quote from Paul Feinbaum. Okay, Paul Feinbaum took aim at the Big Ten much like I did. So again, the meme, heartbreaking, worst person made a great point. But here's what Paul Feinbaum said. You walk out of conference media days, and what was the buzz a week ago about the SEC? Maybe it wasn't as exciting, but there were one or two stories that occurred this time 2 weeks ago that seemed to lead the conversation. But no one said it was anything but a successful 4-day event. All right, that's a long way of Feinbaum basically saying, look, it was kind of boring this year. Outside of Arch Manning, there wasn't like a huge storyline in the SEC, nothing crazy, but nobody said it wasn't successful, which, fair enough. It was not bad. It was not bad. There was a little bit of, SEC self-love, a little bit too over the top, as there always is, but it was nothing crazy. But then Feinbaum says this: I'm looking back on the 4 days of the Big Ten, and I'm going to tell you right now, it was a bust. It was a bust from the beginning, and it was a bust all the way to the end, and it was a bust because it seems to me that Tony Petitti had his minions, whether it was him directly or indirectly, they tried to hand deliver a specific message that went over terribly. Gaslighting, cultish, minions. These are the words that are describing the Big Ten, and that's not coming from me, man. That's not coming from me. That's coming from Paul Feinbaum, Pat Forty, Stuart Mandel, different corners of the college football media world, different sorts of biases that people perceive from some of them at times, rightly or wrongly. But this is we're getting a pretty wide range, and everybody looking at this and being like, yeah, that was pretty embarrassing from the Big Ten. And you know what? I couldn't agree more with what Paul Feinbaum had to say. Couldn't agree more. Not always the ally that you want, but I bring this up just to say this. It's kind of to supplement the point that I was making. Look, I am far from alone in thinking this. Okay, so Big Ten fans that ran into the comments, I'm far from alone in thinking that this was a bad look, and it's getting a little bit too high on your own supply and just veering off the rails of what is actually good for the sport. Losing sight of all of that, the Big Ten seems to be furthest off the tracks right now. I would give Feinbaum that, man. As annoying as the SEC can be, I think they've still got a better grasp on reality, better grip on actual reality than the Big Ten does right now. And look, if there's we all say many things about Paul Feinbaum, but in this instance, I think he's got a little bit of credibility here. He champions a league in the SEC that is clearly much better at pushing a sustained message when they want to. If that, like the SEC, you talk about a league that can be effective in getting a message across. Think back to what happened in December and January, and for months after, the hypothetical games and all the talk about the playoff and Lane Kiffin and all those guys had such a coordinated attack on strength of schedule and how the playoff committee was picking teams. And now what's happened? They have affected change. They have affected change, whether we like it or not. They're going to get tweaks to the importance of strength of schedule in the selection process. It was annoying, but it was effective. I'm not even saying it was right, but it was effective. This is a group that knows how to push a coordinated message. They can look at the Big Ten and say, like, yeah, guys, that was not the way to do it. You guys, that missed the mark. And guess what? The Big Ten is not going to affect legitimate change unless it's negative change against the conference. It's going to backfire and go the other way as opposed to what the SEC did. Yeah, I mean, they came across so whiny. And the thing that the Big Ten, another thing I will point out here is interesting about all this, like the Big Ten doesn't have a Feinbaum with that level of influence to really help push a narrative as well. So I think Paul Feinbaum could look at this and be like, again, you guys, that's cute, but you don't have somebody like me who can help drive the point home too. Like Feinbaum, love him or hate him, not only has his show, but the guy's on Get Up all the time, First Take, like all the big ESPN shows. He's out there a lot. Like many of the quotes that he has that go viral actually aren't from his show. They go viral because they're on the daytime ESPN talk shows, which generate more of an audience, and it's going to kick in. Now, the Big Ten, and this is probably for the worst for everybody, but the Big Ten does seem to be trying to maybe now cultivate their version of Paul Feinbaum, and it looks like that would be Dave Portnoy from Barstool Sports, who's being added to Big Noon Kickoff. Until he gets out there and becomes a little bit more established as like total Big Ten guy, I mean, he does not have the level of influence that Feinbaum does on the college football world right now. Sports world in general, that's a totally different argument, but purely college football, they don't have that. Now, I've kind of scared myself into realizing that the idea I'm bringing up here is like, are we going to get Dave Portnoy trying to be this type of guy defending the Big Ten, being the Baghdad Bob of the Big Ten? Well, we've got Feinbaum being Baghdad Bob of the SEC, and they go at each other. I mean, it'll be entertaining. The content, I can't really complain about that, but I don't think it's a good thing for the state of any of our brains or college football or college sports or anything like that. Anyway, for Big 12 fans to close here, I would say the nice thing is, look, what did I say the other day? You're taking a step back and it's like you're seeing all this drama around at the water cooler at work, and you're just sitting there with some popcorn like, well, I'm glad it's not my drama. I mean, we don't have any of this going on. Like North Carolina's wanting out. The ACC teams are still throwing a fit about trying to get out. They're leaking stories. The Big Ten has completely embarrassed itself, and the SEC is now the league jumping in, really pointing the finger and be like, man, how ridiculous is all of this? The SEC is still fighting the strength of schedule battle thing. I mean, all that stuff is going on. The Big Ten and the SEC, I didn't even bring this up, are fighting over the playoff format. The Big 12 is just kind of like, hey, this is great. we threw a poison pill out there, the 5+11, got them fighting with each other. ACC still got its drama and its instability. I mean, we're just doing our thing. We're just doing our thing. Big 12 just doing its thing. So am I, and I appreciate you guys being here while I did it tonight.